Good Monday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and this, the I Love CVille Show. Thank you kindly for joining us. We are live in Charlottesville, across Central Virginia, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network. It's great to be with you on a glorious day to be alive, and so much to cover on today's program with the University of Virginia, the meat and potatoes of today's show. We'll talk the new data science school that cracked ground late last week here in Charlottesville and the expectations for a data science program that undoubtedly will impact Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and the Central Virginia ecosystem. We'll predict and discuss how that impact will transpire today on this fine program. We will also discuss on the I Love CVille Show Brennan Armstrong, a Virginia football team, and their climb up the Coastal Division rankings. UVA football is on national television left and right. In fact, their face of the program is a southpaw redhead who is tough, is tenacious, he's got a cannon for an arm, and looks super healthy running the football on Saturday evening, and now certainly should be in the conversation for Heisman Trophy. We'll break down this football team. We'll talk about what this football program means to Charlottesville and the brand we call Charlottesville on today's program. Stephen Davis will join us on the show. He's the president of the Community Investment Collaborative. CIC, a tremendous asset to our Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia communities. We highlight a lot of CIC businesses on the I Love CVille Network. In fact, two of our very insightful and dynamic contributors to the I Love CVille Network, Alex Erpy, who has a slot on Tuesdays on the I Love CVille Show at 12:50. He's the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Alex Erpy and his father Xavier also co-hosts Today y Mañana Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille Network. Alex, is it a board of director, Alex? I'll ask Stephen this. I believe a board of director at the Community Investment Collaborative. Lee Elberson's the second individual I reference. He's the chairman. Lee Elberson comes on this program once a month or so, and Mr. Elberson, the CEO of Claiborne Education, offers dynamic insight as well. Folks, the Community Investment Collaborative is a training ground, an educational breeding ground of fabulous entrepreneurs. And CIC is giving entrepreneurs like Scotty Williams of Camp for Real the foundation to launch companies and businesses that are then going into the Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia economic ecosystems and positively contributing to said ecosystems either through job creation or driving economic growth or through nonprofit work like Camp for Real, where they're giving back to the next generation of students, giving them the character, the integrity, and the principles needed for the career path any they choose to pursue. So we'll talk with Stephen Davis in 17 minutes on today's show. Very excited for that interview. I think the lead of today's program is we welcome Vanessa Parkhill to the broadcast. Vanessa and Tracy Lee Shiflett, we love when you watch the program. The lead of the show has got to be football today, and I often don't lead with football, but it's not every day you got a football team that is 6-2 on the season overall and 4-2 in the Coastal Division, sitting in second place right now in the Coastal, with the Pitt Panthers undoubtedly in eyesight. In fact, Virginia football will travel to Pittsburgh on the 20th of November. Now, before Virginia and Bronco Mendenhall and Brennan Armstrong and this Virginia football team get to this matchup against the Pitt Panthers, Virginia's got two very tough contests. UVA is going to travel on Saturday to BYU. They're going to go across country. Kickoff is 10:15 p.m. East Coast time. Late kickoff East Coast time. So this program is going to play at Elevation, BYU, Stadium in the Mountains. This football team is going to play a late ball game, 10:15 p.m. start Generally, it's 7:30 p.m. or earlier. And once again, UVA football is going to be on national television against a BYU football team that's 25th in the nation. Now, a couple things I want to get off my chest. First, Virginia football is in receiving votes in both polls. Receiving votes in both polls. I think Virginia, if they're fortunate to get a win against BYU, and it's going to be a hard-fought battle no matter how you look at it, no matter how you dissect both programs, it's going to be a tough contest. It's a road game, college football. Road games are tough, especially against 25 in the country, especially at elevation, especially at 10-15 start, especially against number 25 in the country. But this football team, if you've noticed, some things are starting to improve. Let's start under center first. Who has noticed Brennan Armstrong's legs and his ability to run the football get significantly better as the season has improved, or as the season has worn on, excuse me. This guy is legitimately a dual threat quarterback. And as strong as he is throwing the football, and this guy, as Bronco Mendenhall has said, could be the best ACC quarterback, the best quarterback in the Atlantic Coast Conference. I think he is. When he's able to also run the rock as well, it makes the offense that much more dynamic. You can make a legitimate argument that the best running back on the Virginia football team is Brennan Armstrong. He had 12 carries, 99 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, and average 8 yards plus per carry against the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. He also threw for nearly 400 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. So, as Mr. Greg Wells said on Real Talk earlier this morning with Keith Smith, myself, here on the I Love CVille Network, these are video game-like numbers for this redheaded southpaw. Now, I want to continue with the positive commentary. We'll get critical. We'll hold the team accountable in a matter of moments. But before we do, the Virginia football defense, this defense, certainly the weakest aspect of the program. No one can argue with me there. I saw some improvement from the Virginia defense. In fact, after allowing 13 points in the first quarter, early 13 points right out of the gate, the defense started to stiffen up a little bit. Only 3 points allowed in the second quarter. Only 8 points allowed in the third quarter. And going into that fourth period, you saw a defense that started sucking some of the life out of an explosive Yellow Jacket offense. Now, let's get critical. To give up 2 onside kicks, to allow 2 onside kicks to be recovered late in a contest against an ACC rival is unacceptable, inexcusable, and undoubtedly a point of concern, and I can assure you something that will be focused upon by Bronco and this team this week in practice. 1 onside kick is a kick in the you-know-where. 2 onside kicks could literally cost you a victory. In Virginia, despite the score of 48-40, that game was a lot closer because of the last 4 or 5 minutes of the contest. Georgia Tech didn't give up. And it looked like UVA, in the final 5 or 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, they got complacent, cocky, and relaxed. I'm excited to see Virginia with a really stiff test. And you could make a legitimate argument, maybe the stiffest test of the season, this Saturday, against a BYU football team at elevation on national television with a 10:15 p.m. Eastern kickoff time. Virginia is going to see what they're about against BYU. A couple of other items I'd like to get to. Virginia has got playmakers all over the football field. In fact, one of the playmakers that is one of my most favorites is Mr. Wicks, the 6'1" wide receiver, 205-pound second year from Louisiana. This guy runs great routes. He's got great hands, and he can go up in the air and catch the football. He did it against Georgia Tech in double coverage. Wicks is as good a wide receiver as you're going to see in college football. They have a tight end in Mr. Woods, who's 6'7", 265 pounds. LeBron James playing tight end. 6'7", 265, that is in the red zone, almost unguardable, because he could use his wide frame to box people out and his hands that are soft to catch Armstrong laser passes. Now, I want to give you this to consider. Billy Kemp's a hell of a pass catcher. Rashawn Henry's a hell of a pass catcher. Mr. Wicks, Mr. Woods, fantastic pass catchers. Artie Henry, not a bad pass catcher. The best wide receiver on Virginia's roster may be Lavelle Davis Jr. This guy got injured before the season even started. Lavelle Davis Jr., if you remember, 6'7", 220 plus pounds, 5 touchdown catches last year. You can make a straight up, bona fide, informed, and fact-based argument that a 6'7", 220-pound wide receiver who got injured before the season even started may be the best playmaker on the team, on the roster, and he hasn't even suited up for a game this season. I bring this up to you by saying the cupboard, as they say, is quite deep. I'm excited for this team to see what they do in the back half of the year, because the schedule at BYU, bye week, host Notre Dame, at Pittsburgh, and host the Hokies in the Commonwealth Clash. 4 football games. That is the toughest streak of football the team has seen all year long. We will know something about this bowl-eligible 6-2 Virginia football program over the next 4 to 5 weeks as the regular season concludes. Now, UVA and the national attention it's getting in the most popular sport in America, football. What does that do for the school? What does that do for Charlottesville? What does that do for Albemarle County? What does that do for Central Virginia? Well, it only attracts more talent to the program, to the university, to the town, to the Central Virginia, to the region. And as more talent comes to Charlottesville and to UVA, that talent will do what a lot of us have done. We will choose to stay in Charlottesville after we graduate from college. We will wax nostalgic about the best 4 years of our life if we choose to take a job outside of the community and say, good night. I remember my 4 years in Charlottesville, and I'd like to figure out a way to get back here. When Michael Vick was the quarterback of Virginia Tech, when he led the Hokies to a national championship appearance, applications skyrocketed for people and students choosing Blacksburg and Virginia Tech as their 4-year rite of passage. The same thing will happen here in Charlottesville. We're still riding the momentum and coattails of a national basketball championship. Our lacrosse, our soccer, our baseball, our tennis, our squash programs, as good as it gets. And now a football team led by Bronco Mendenhall that can command respect and national championship, Heisman Trophy, hopes and possibilities. They're on national TV, left and right. This is only good for the brand that we call Charlottesville. And on the flip side, will only make the community and the quality of life and the cost of living more expensive, more expensive, more expensive. And speaking of UVA, 2 more items before we get to the well-liked, the well-respected, and the dynamic Stephen Davis, the president of the Community Investment Collaborative. The University of Virginia this past week, late in the week, broke ground on the data science school that's been funded and financed by the hedge fund titan Geoffrey Woodruff. A 14-acre parcel will hold the data science school at the intersection of Ivy Road and Emmett Street. Data science is a skill and a curriculum and an educational foundation that applies to just about every level of employment. We're an advertising agency here. Our clients ask for the data behind their campaigns. Financial firms give us the data behind the positions, the stocks, the funds we're investing our client dollars in. $120 million, the largest gift in UVA history, by an individual whose firm is directly across the street from the I Love CVille studio. This data science school will add another level of dynamic offering to UVA and the students who choose to apply to this fantastic institution. The pool of applicants at the University of Virginia, I went there 2000 to 2004, is so different than when I attended school here, when my brother attended the University of Virginia, when my father attended the University of Virginia from 68 to 72. It's more competitive than it's ever been. And as you get a world-class applicant pursuing admission to this school we call UVA, you get a world-class intellect and base of individuals learning, setting up businesses, and pursuing careers in our community. Look around, guys. You have a world-class squash facility, interestingly, also funded by Geoffrey Woodruff. You have a world-class tennis resort in the Boar's Head, a world-class squash facility in the MacArthur Squash Center. You're going to have a world-class entrepreneurial epicenter in Code, the center of developing entrepreneurs, the old ice park footprint on the downtown mall. You have world-class, certainly country-class wine in the wine region that we call Albemarle County in Central Virginia. How about the beer scene? How about the restaurants? 14th per capita in the nation, most density of restaurants per population. Everywhere you look, you're seeing spaces in industries that are either notoriety countrywide or worldwide. That's a reflection of the university. It's also why the cost of living has skyrocketed through the roof. It's a good problem, but it's a problem nevertheless. Judah Wickower, Mr. Stephen Davis will welcome him to the set in T-minus 40 seconds. Dr. Scott Gottlieb said this morning on Squawk on the Street of CNBC that he 100% feels confident that his young children should get this vaccination. Dr. Scott Gottlieb, boys and girls, is a CNBC contributor and a member of the boards of Pfizer. He also served as co-chair of the Norwegian Cruise Line. He was one time the chairman of the FDA. He has kids in elementary school, and he said he would undoubtedly sign his children up for the vaccination that is right around the corner. He made a couple of points that I want to bring to you. We've seen 690 deaths in children under the age of 18 and 115 kids ages 5 to 11 who have died from COVID. While that is a small number, it's still a number to consider nevertheless, because no parent ever wants to be in that situation. He also makes this point. Children will be vaccinated in pediatrician offices as opposed to vaccination centers. And that's going to have a hugely positive impact of kids getting the vaccine. You go to your peds appointment, your kid will get vaxxed in a normal routine checkup, as opposed to having to drive to the old Kmart location and wait in line outside in assembly line-like fashion. That's good. That's positive. All right, that's the last on those notes. J-Dubs, if you can go to the studio camera, please. Let's welcome Stephen Davis to the show. Stephen, your name comes up constantly on this program, whether it's Alex Erpy, whether it's Lee Elberson, Scott Williams, or some of the folks we interview. I was like, let's get this guy in for a second rodeo. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to be here.
It's great to be here.
Keep recruiting board members to, lead your show, and we'll be great.
It's amazing. Is Alex a board member?
Alex is a board member,
Okay,
yes.
he's a board member. Okay,
Yeah.
so Alex Erpy's a board member, and Lee is chairman of the board?
He is currently chair, yes.
Chair of the board.
Yep.
We're nudging Lee. I know you're watching the program here, nudging you to the Lee Elberson show. I think that would be fantastic. All right, so for the few that don't know you, Stephen, introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure, Stephen Davis. I'm president of the Community Investment Collaborative. Lived in Charlottesville this time for about 12 years, 2 short previous stints. Years ago in a previous life, used to work on political campaigns and came through town. So been with CIC. CIC turns 10 years old next year, and I've been with CIC for 9 of those years.
One of the incredibly positive testaments of you as the leader of the CIC is this organization is becoming a household name.
Well, it's great to hear.
Handful of years ago, some folks were, what's it about? What do we do here? What's going on? Now, dude, you are producing so much talent. I mean, first, for the few that don't know, introduce the CIC to everybody.
Sure. Our mission is helping under-resourced entrepreneurs start and grow businesses. So we really focus on the micro side of the small scale. So the folks who are starting the mom and pop businesses. Not that folks can't start a business that's going to scale through us, but we're specifically focused on the ones where the owner is going to run the business day in and day out, probably for the lifetime of the business. And so we have a 16-week entrepreneur workshop that helps people kind of develop their business idea and validate it and learn a little bit about how to run the business. We have a mentor program. We offer microloans of up to $35,000 and then lots of networking opportunities and so forth. So kind of all of those together have been the core of CIC. Last year in January, we took over as host for the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center. So the SBDCs exist all over the country, including 30 or so right here in Virginia, and the Central Virginia SBDC had been housed at another agency until January of 2020, and we took over. So that significantly expanded our kind of business advising and technical capacity to help businesses as they continue to grow. So that's a 30-second version of CIC. There's lots more to all of that.
Put in perspective some of the fabulous businesses, some of the most recognized businesses that have matriculated through CIC.
So we've had a number of food-related businesses. So Angelique's Kitchen at Dairy Market and Little Manila over at Dairy Market, both graduates of our program. Mochico at Fifth Street Station, Soul Food Joint right around the corner from here are all graduates. Alakazam, Ellen Joy, who owns that, bought that business after completing CIC's workshop when the owner was selling, so was able to take it over and grow it from there. Charlottesville Ballet over off of Woodbrook, and right around the corner from them is a Dope Fashion, little retail store. Batesville Market, Kristen Raberdeen is a graduate of our program and bought that business when it was going under and continued. So we have a good mix of folks who've started businesses, but also folks who've taken over existing businesses, especially things like Alakazam and Batesville Market, which are, have been known in the community for quite a while, and they've taken over and really brought new life to them as they've continued.
Scott Williams,
yes.
One of my favorites.
Camp for Real, of course, for all those great summer camps and phys ed and kind of keeping kids moving, so great business there.
How did you guys manage the pandemic?
I think like everyone is tough. I mean, first and foremost, like every business, we have a bunch of humans working there, right? And so, it's both scary, have family to take care of, disruption of your life, and kind of daily routines, and kind of at least for 2020, it felt like every 4 to 6 weeks, there was a completely new routine you had to think through and manage. And so that was challenging. We moved our operations to remote, for most of or all of 2020 and most of the first half of 2021. But that, pretty quickly after we, kind of got ourselves, I wouldn't say settled, but established working remotely, we started thinking about, what do our clients need? And they were all the businesses trying to figure out how to adapt, what is the environment that they're operating in. And so beyond us adapting as an organization, the things that we did for clients early on. So in April of 2020, we had partnered with the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County and launched the Business Recovery Fund, which was a kind of emergency working capital loan fund for businesses that had been impacted by COVID in those first early weeks. They are quickly depleting reserves and trying to figure out how to keep open, keep employees paid. And this was as the Paycheck Protection Program was launching. And so people were still figuring that out. And that was, like even the SBA couldn't quite, keep it moving as fast as it needed to be. So pre-pandemic, we had done about 1 or 2 loans a month over our history. And in April and May of 2020, we did 60 loans in about 60 days.
Oh my gosh.
To help folks.
I'm giving you props for that.
And so that was...
You saved businesses.
Well, I think we played a part in it for sure in helping and helping them get some of that capital so they could hopefully make some better decisions and not have to be entirely relying on the kind of environment they were in. That led to a lot of partnerships with local governments. So starting in July of 2020, we partnered first with Culpeper County, which we hadn't worked with much before, but it was a great opportunity. And then eventually between July and December, partnered with 11 local governments to help them manage their CARES Act grants. So all the local governments were getting this money from the CARES Act, which is the first stimulus package. And they wanted to help businesses with it by making grants. But in Virginia, local government can't give money directly to businesses, and so they needed to partner with a third partner to do it. And so we were able to partner with 11 local governments over 6 months to make 800 grants for about $12 million to businesses. And these were grants, not loans, in that period of time to help them, again, get that capital and so forth. So that was quite a stretching exercise for our team, working remotely to manage those applications, to do all the certifications and hoops you had to jump through, because it was federal funds coming through and had to dot a lot of I's and cross a lot of T's. And we did our best to make that as easy as possible for the businesses along the way.
Johnny Ornelas, welcome to the show. He owns El Mariachi in Guadalajara. Vanessa Parkhill, hello. Tracy Lee Shiflett, hello. Our friends at the CVille, hello, and welcome to the show. Let's throw this to you. Which local jurisdictions do you think were most supportive of entrepreneurs and small businesses during this pandemic? Because you saw firsthand.
I would say I've been impressed with all of the localities that we work with in the area. And again, we worked with 11 localities for the CARES Act funding, and then a couple more with the Business Recovery Fund loans. Everyone. I would say the economic development staff at each of the counties throughout the region really kind of put their heads together and worked together in probably a different way than they had before. They've always partnered and collaborated, but they really kind of learned a lot from each other so they could move very quickly. And so each one kind of responded to their individual community's needs in a different way. Certainly City of Charlottesville and Albemarle provided a lot of support to local businesses, both in funding, but also some of the programs made it easy to get zoning approvals so you could set up, your restaurant could actually serve people in the parking lot, right? That wouldn't have been allowed by normal rules, but they made those things happen more quickly. And so, I'd say given we were all very limited in what we could do, they all found the ways to adapt, and so even this wasn't a local government thing, but just the state government allowed for, alcohol sales to be takeout, right? And that had never happened before in Virginia, right? And I think that made a big difference. Certainly, all the takeout we ordered last year trying to support our businesses.
Us too.
It was great to have, it'd be great to be able to have the margarita come home as well, right? So I think local government, I wouldn't rate one above the other. I would just say each one did more than they probably ever would have predicted, had you said, hey, what could we do? They stretched themselves in new ways.
What were two of the coolest, you mentioned two very cool innovations, the eating in the parking lot or eating outside, and then the cocktails to go. What were some of the other cool innovations you saw come out of this pandemic?
It's hard to always think of them. I think a lot of businesses really adapted, retail stores that, they might have had online sales before, but actually doing delivery same day, right? And because they knew people weren't coming into the store, but you could, actually have it delivered to your house. And so, we live up behind the airport in Earlysville, and, for Alakazam to deliver, kids' birthday presents to the house same day, awesome. Right? And so, while those ideas don't sound innovative, but they're hard to do, and to kind of change your operations, to adapt to do it. And so lots of businesses did that, and I think made a difference. Certainly the Frontline Foods, and all the work that happened there that provided, kind of hired local restaurants to provide food for frontline workers. Both kept the restaurants open, showed appreciation for the frontline workers, was a great innovation and a great resource that was available here in town.
Don't you feel like this community is so awesome? I know you do. We've come out, I'm knocking on wood here. I know we're not completely out. Hopefully we're heading out of this pandemic. Don't you feel like stronger than ever?
I think we're moving in the right direction. I think there's, like any challenging point often causes injury, and sometimes that injury you have to make sure you kind of work it out well. Otherwise, physical therapy helps you break through scar tissue, right? And so you have to make sure you work through those injuries. And so as we come out of it, yes, we're getting stronger. There's lots more opportunity. Things are feeling easier because they've been so hard for a year or so. But that doesn't mean that automatically everyone's ready to go right away. And so you have to kind of provide that room for people to kind of know who they are, know what they need, and move forward in a smart way so that you can really take advantage of the opportunities that are coming as, hopefully, like you said, knock on wood, things continue to move in a good direction.
We're both champions for small business and entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Both of us do it in similar ways. Do you feel like the ecosystem for the small business owner, how would you characterize it here?
I'd say there's a lot of energy and entrepreneur spirit in this community. A lot of folks who, want to be able to say, hey, I can do this different or better, and I think because of a lot of the groups and partnerships and things kind of that exist throughout town, there's a lot of energy put into helping them kind of cultivate that. And so I think overall we're in a good spot. There's always more things that we can do, and for a small town there's a lot, so that sometimes it's hard to figure out exactly where to focus, and that's like any, being strategic is about deciding what to do and what not to do, right? And I think that's the kind of the constant challenge that the entrepreneur ecosystem faces is, what can we do well, and what can we not do yet?
So that's a question I had for you. So Jack Dorsey's the CEO of Twitter and Square, and yesterday he tweets that hyperinflation is going to be a very real concern for us very soon. What are your thoughts on how hyperinflation could potentially impact, the mom and pops and the small businesses that are out there?
Hard to say. Not an economist on that one. Certainly, inflation will affect. Don't know necessarily where the difference between inflation and hyperinflation affects local businesses, but as things cost more, businesses have to constantly update their pricing, and you get into have that update their cost and update their prices, and that affects who's using them, right? And so I would say one of the observations, you tell me if you disagree on this, but last year it felt like the more of the businesses that survived were more of the businesses that were very local. And some of the kind of pseudo chain to national chain businesses, they're the ones that folded first.
I agree with that.
And it's because they had a brand that was strong all over, but it was a mile wide and an inch deep. Whereas most of the local restaurants and stuff had a much deeper kind of brand here. And so as that relates to inflation and prices, can hope that same connectivity and kind of support and loyalty that we have to all of our local, businesses will come through even as prices start to change. And hopefully it doesn't happen so fast that, as far as change in prices, that it really, knocks businesses out. Because if it happens over time, then,
you can prepare.
Wages go up as well, salaries go up as well, and then everyone can keep affording it. But there's always, it's a real challenge for a number of folks, and it's even, you're seeing it already. It's hard for folks to find employees right now, and that means people are paying more all the time. Even minimum wage just went up, but already people are paying more than it because they have to if you want to find and keep good people.
I think you just crushed it. You're not an economist, but you just crushed that answer right there, dude. What are the concerns that you're seeing with some of the folks that are coming or graduating through CIC? Like, what are the challenges, some of the largest hurdles? You touched on labor. You touched on cost of goods. We talk often on the show about, how UVA offers this great, this net of talent, but that net of talent has to get paid, or they're not going to stay here. They're going to go to Wall Street. They're going to go to Silicon Valley. They'll go to Austin. We also talk about how this is a wealthy area. It's an affluent area. There's a lot of deep-pocketed individuals, but with the affluence and the wealth comes extremely high cost of living, which makes it difficult to keep people here. Yeah. What are some of the challenges your brands that are graduating from CRC are facing?
Well, I'd say pre-pandemic, that certainly is continuing, or it's continuing post-pandemic, but there's probably even a slight pause in it. And this market better is, commercial real estate. It's expensive, right? If we have someone who's thinking of starting a business and maybe they live in Fluvanna and they're looking, they want to start maybe in Fluvanna and the prices are a little bit easier, commercial real estate there, but if it's a retail operation, is there enough traffic for them? And so then, maybe I'll start in Charlottesville or Albemarle, but then there's enough traffic, but the prices are way up, and so kind of getting in the door for that can be very challenging, because if, you start in a place where you don't have enough volume, then you can't even really test what you're doing because you don't know if there's just, the market's not big enough or if they're just not coming. And then if you have too much overhead too soon, in a really expensive real estate market, it can be challenging to get out the gate. And so kind of the similar problem that you'd have with affordable housing, affordable commercial real estate, right? And while I think there's been a lot of, you're certainly a real estate person yourself and and rent properties to commercial tenants. I think a lot of them have kind of made some strategic moves in helping folks, with some very favorable terms for a short period of time to get them in the door, so they wouldn't have quite as many vacancies. The question is, how long does that last? And how long can it sustain for it? And hopefully a long time, or hopefully we can help more people get there. But I think that's one of the issues for those who are really looking to start locations.
Excellent answer. You said CIC turns 10.
Turns 10 next year.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, CIC.
Yeah.
Early birthday. How has Community Investment Collaborative evolved over the 10 years? You mentioned the microloans. What other evolution aspects have you seen or experienced or are proud to champion?
So I'd say, I feel like our brand, everyone has different perceptions of what brand is, but for us, I think it's the roots of our brand are the same as they were when we were founded, right? You know, the idea behind CIC was a microloan fund but we launched an entrepreneur workshop before we started making loans because we knew that people needed that help in developing that business knowledge and skills and to kind of have that support as they put that money to work going forward. And it took us 6 or 7 years. It took us 7.5 years to make our first $500,000 in loans, and it took 2 years to make the next $1.5 million. And so that's
a great stat.
Yeah. So the next loan that gets approved for CIC will be our $2 millionth lending. So
the next loan that gets approved by CIC is your $2 millionth on the street.
Yep. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So you'll look for that in the coming weeks, hopefully. But that's.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. No, we're excited about it, and the brand piece of it, though, is still kind of focused on the entrepreneur. We're about developing people as entrepreneurs, not just, and they develop their business. And that's been our focus all along the way. They help them on the workshop. You stick with them as they're making the decisions, even when they have setbacks. We stick with them. And so, as we've continued to grow, our thought is, how can we continue to stick with them? And that led us to taking over as host for the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center, which gives us the ability to walk with them even further as their businesses grow, more technical skills, as well as help a broader set of businesses from across the community. So the brand is still, though, like I said, it's about developing people as entrepreneurs, and I think hopefully it always will be.
Johnny Ornelas, like I said, owns 2 restaurants, El Mariachi and Guadalajara, and he says no one wants to work in the restaurant, not even for $12 an hour, not even if they're the dishwasher. Yeah, we can't even get folks to work. I mean, is this a common denominator you are hearing from not just your graduates in the restaurant space, but across the board?
It's certainly hard finding employees right now. I think there's a lot of characterizations of why that might be.
Why do you think that? I was going to ask you that.
No, it's. I mean, again, there's lots of different experiences going, but like we've all gone through the pandemic, which is a world-changing event. We're not going to know the full implications of how the pandemic changes our daily lives for another decade, probably,
or a generation.
Yeah. And so with that, people. Last year they locked down completely, right? And then this year, as they come back, everyone has reevaluated where they are in life, right? And so they're going to think about what do I want to be doing? How much risk am I willing to take? Especially as long as we were actually in the pandemic, as we are. So that really affects how people make those decisions. So certainly wages is one part of it. But the other part of it, especially in restaurants, and any of the kind of public-facing jobs, is, as a community, we have to have all the patrons of these businesses have to treat those workers well, not just the businesses themselves and the employers, because a lot of them do. I'm sure there are some who don't, and that affects their ability to keep people. But also, if you're going to be yelled at, by folks who don't want to wear a mask or don't want to kind of follow some of the new requirements, and you're getting paid, a relatively low wage, and it's in a pandemic, and you're taking risk yourself in doing it, are you going to want to work as much?
No.
And so.
Well said.
Yeah, and so there aren't any right answers to it. I don't like the theme that people don't want to work anymore. It's that people don't want to work under these conditions, for this particular set of wages, right? And so that's an important part that, we have to remember. It's a challenge, though, because that means if wages are higher, the conditions are harder, that puts pressure on all the very small businesses too. So it's one of those situations like, when the pandemic started, usually when there's a natural disaster anywhere, right? Like a hurricane hits and the rest of the country helps them. But the pandemic was everywhere. And so there's not someone else who can just come in and help. And so we're all just kind of muddling through that together. And the more we can realize, kind of be supportive of each other, show grace, remember that even as patrons of businesses, give those folks who are working the benefit of the doubt. Tip them a little bit better if it's a tipping, if it's a restaurant, the hotel workers, when you're checking in, I remember this summer we did make it to Virginia Beach, got out of town. My wife had a conference and they were slammed. The hotel was fully packed and at 40% capacity on staff. They're working very hard,
yeah.
and I'm sure they're getting a lot of flack from people. So that makes it even harder for those who are still there to stay. So how do we keep all of that together enough, to get out of this so that hopefully can get back to a little bit of normalcy? But it all gets easier, the more we kind of take care of each other.
Stephen Davis on fire right now. Olivia Branch giving you some props. Well done, Stephen and his team. What are the best nonprofit organizations in the region that should be offered nationwide? So this is a question from Grayson, who watches the show routinely. Grayson, I believe you're a UVA graduate, right? Let me know if you're a UVA graduate. He asked this question of you, Stephen. Do the early graduates of CIC come back as mentors for the current, he calls them students, but the current, I'll say the current businesses that are in the program? Are they students?
We usually say entrepreneurs or clients, yeah. Okay. So, all do apply, at least while you're in the workshop. Yes, we have people. Our model is built off of bringing people back and building a network and community that supports each other. So, I don't have the last number I used to quote was we probably had about 75 or so of our graduates who have volunteered in the program in some way, like they led a discussion or led a work group or have mentored, or helped in some other way. We have, we've had 3 graduates serve on our board. I think we're up to about 70 graduates who have donated to the program after going through it. So yes, it's about, many have given back and help each other. And that's just the ones we track. I mean, they help each other all the time. Some of my favorite stories from our earlier cohorts was 2 individuals, a younger black man and an older white lady who were in a business, both in the workshop and working on their business together. And he was struggling to finish his business plan. And she had him over for dinner kind of at the kitchen counter working on the business for a couple of nights a week until they got it done, and they were both in the class. Neither of them were volunteers or whatever. They were just both entrepreneurs who had met and struck up a connection. And that kind of cross-community connections that happens throughout the program is one of the strongest points of it. And one of the ones that I'm glad our workshop this fall is back in person after being remote for the last year and a half, because those connections happen so much more when you can do it in person, and so that we're looking to kind of keep building on those.
Patrick Rivera has a question for you. He says, how does the CIC get its funding for its microloan program?
So our current loan fund is about $1.3 million, of which $1 million of it is equity or grants to us. Mostly have been local government or a couple of federal government grants, a couple of private grant donations in there that included, and then $300,000 of it is we have borrowed from a private foundation to help make more loans, in the community. So CIC is what you called, as of last year or this year, a certified community development finance institution. It's a U.S. Treasury Department certification that will allow us to continue to grow our loan fund. And over time, many CDFIs have a mix of grant funding as well as debt where they've borrowed from whether it's banks or foundations or other entities to kind of help leverage more capital for the community.
Anthony Hester's watching in Waynesboro, and he says, Jerry, please ask your guests 2 questions. First, are these loans that often entrepreneurs cannot get from banks? And then the second question is, can someone like me who has an idea for a business in Waynesboro apply, or is this Charlottesville or Albemarle only?
So, our ideal is if you can get a loan from a bank, you should. Long term, it's in your interest. You build that relationship. Banks can offer lots of access to other resources that a small community nonprofit cannot. So we exist to fill that gap where banks can't do it. And so if you're borrowing under $50,000, you haven't been in business 2 years, don't have a 650 credit score, don't have collateral, it's incredibly hard to get a loan, a traditional business loan from a bank. You could get a credit card, you could do home equity, but to actually just do a business loan, that would be incredibly challenging. So that's the first question. Yes, it's the ones that banks are less likely to do. On the second one, our current service region is Charlottesville, Albemarle, Nelson, Louisa, Fluvanna, Greene, Orange, Culpeper, Madison, Rappahannock. I think that's all of them. I won't try to repeat that again. But so we don't specifically serve Waynesboro at the moment, but there's another great organization in Stanton called the Shenandoah Creative Capital Fund. Used to be called the Stanton Creative Community Fund, or SCCF. That also is a microlender. They're a few years older than CIC, and they do serve Augusta County. So I would check them out to see if you're looking for financing.
What's the plan for expansion? I mean, your wheels are always turning here. You're about to be 10.
Yep.
What's the next 10 years like?
We're working on that now. We just our board has been doing our strategic planning and had a retreat last week and this week to think about what's next. Certainly, our loan program is continuing to grow. And so as I mentioned, with brands and kind of businesses going deeper, we're going to continue going deeper here in this region to provide more loans. I mean, we've done 2 million loans in 10 years. I'd love to do 5 in the next 5. And so. Helping folks more, thinking of our current cap is $35,000. Probably by the end of the year, we're going to have an announcement of that, increasing that cap. So doing a little bit larger loans, still micro loans, but a little bit larger than our current cap.
35 can take a small business a long way.
It can, but there's also sometimes a $30,000 or sometimes a $50,000 loan is more risky or is less risky than a $30,000 loan.
Walk me through that.
Yeah. If a business needs $50,000 to get up and going, lending them 30, doesn't give them enough to go.
And then they're on the hook for the 30, and they don't have the runway to make money.
Exactly. And so thinking about how to do more of that, and as we kind of with our CDFI certification and other opportunities on the horizon, I think we are in a position to kind of raise more capital so that we can then deploy into the community. Along the way, we need to help all the businesses make really good use of that. And so that's, things like our financial management program to help folks kind of really who've never done business record keeping, right? And do that really well so that when you want to seek financing, whether through us or a bank, or even if you're seeking outside investor of some sort, that you have all your ducks in a row, that kind of builds a really strong case for you. So those supports that come like after our workshop and as the business is ongoing is really important. So we want to continue to double down in that. Charlottesville and Albemarle represent probably 75% of our clients over the last 9 years. And I think we will continue to it'll be the core of our clients will be here, but we're also working to kind of build deeper relationships. We were just out at the Quad County Business Summit last week, which is, Orange, Louisa, Greene, and Madison and Fluvanna counties that we're all do this event every year, and working to build those relationships to help a lot of the businesses in the rural communities that are a part of the region as well.
Tracy Lee Shiflett, everyone did what they could to save businesses in our area. Stephen is right. Locals had more invested interest to keep things going, and the CIC is a great program to help people in our community. Donna Yoder says, does the loan program with CIC, once it's paid back, can that be used as data to support bank loans as your business grows?
So yeah, we report credit history on all of our loans. So we're a member of a national nonprofit called the Credit Builders Alliance, which allows us to report all of your loan payments if you have one through us, just like a bank or any other lender might. And so making those payments on time improves your credit, and so builds your score just like paying any of your debts does. So from the beginning, that's right on the record. Same thing, it also, it helps you establish business credit through some of the business credit profiles like Duns & Bradstreet and Experian Business, that you have now a business credit profile that if you were seeking financing, there would be a record of on-time payments and so forth on it. So absolutely it does. And then we also have talked to banks along the way when folks are seeking credit through them that, hey, this person went through our program and we've worked with them. And so all of those, I think, are, important things in your favor as you're moving forward.
What's your favorite, you're killing this interview, by the way. What's your favorite aspect of your job?
I love kind of the energy of all the entrepreneurs coming through and helping them really seeing when the business clicks, that like you have the idea, that people love what you make, whether it's a product or service and you deliver, people love it. But when people kind of click on, this is how it works, that I can not just be a hobby, but it could be my full-time job, or I could actually, employ family members or neighbors or, have employees, that I can actually build something that could, be really special for my family and my community. And when people when the idea clicks on how it could work, whether it's understanding the cost model or pricing or the marketing piece, or really finding that right first opportunity, those things I think are really energize me, because that's what it's there. Help people get to that, because there are a lot of people with tons of talent and they are scared of the idea of business, right? And so they need to, like, they're scared of selling, or they're scared of the numbers, or both. And helping folks kind of demystify that and kind of put the pieces in place to actually kind of go do that, it's a lot of fun when you kind of see it all come together.
Josiah Churchman, Jerry, please bring up your ideas for school curriculum to your guests and how they should change. So I've said often on the show that a lot of the theory that our kids are taught, where like we may not use ever again, like I don't use calculus, and I don't use.
Do you use algebra?
I don't use algebra, right?
Well, it's funny. I mean, some of my coworkers will probably give me a hard time whenever I say this, but when we teach break even in our workshop, of helping figure out when is the business going to break even, how much do I need to sell every month? It's just algebra. We don't teach it as algebra because it's
you
really
teach it as arithmetic.
Yeah, or you teach it as the exercise, and we use Excel and it does the work for you and that type of thing. But those things are important. That thinking is important, and helping people. It's just often what would make those things more important is if you could apply them to real world examples sooner.
So that was my point. So why don't we teach balancing a checkbook, or why don't we teach here's how you go about, and I'm not talking CIC, I'm talking about school, like elementary, middle school, high school. Like, here's how you go about improving your credit. Here's how you go about, this is what you need to do to get a loan. Here's the process to buy a house.
Yeah, I mean, I can't answer that question of why we do or don't. Certainly, it's valuable skills that I think everyone should have, right?
Because it's a school of hard knocks that teaches us that.
Exactly,
often.
For sure. But I will also say, many of the things we teach in CIC's workshop to businesses who are actually working on their business. There are a number of things, human nature is that you don't really focus on it until it's an immediate need.
Sure.
And so there's a balancing act that needs to happen. Yes, you should teach it and introduce it, and you should show how that theoretical calculus or algebra or whatever else you're teaching has real world implications that can really be useful to you even in high school or right after. But you have to remember that people often are going to need to learn it multiple times along the way, just because we learn it more when it's a critical, immediate need.
You're on fire, man. You're great. Stephen Davis, guys, is the president of the Community Investment Collaborative. How about a final word for the community that's watching, some of the media outlets that are watching, about CIC, how we can help, how we can get involved and support?
Yeah, always, if folks who are thinking of, so I get the question all the time, and Jerry, you're a marketer, folks say, they say, CIC sounds great, how come I've never heard of it? Or, how do people hear of it? And the hard part is not everyone can always know about you. What I'd love to make sure is that if someone is starting a business, who do they likely talk to? I want to make sure those people know about CIC, because whoever their first call is, then make sure they get them to us. And so, so when you hear people who are thinking of starting a business, suggest that they come talk to CIC or the Central Virginia Small Business Development Center to kind of think through the idea. They might determine they don't need what we offer, but at least they'll know of resources that can help them when they do need it. And so that's the number one thing that folks can do, is just to kind of help spread the word about. So when you hear someone talking about a business, it's sure, it might be that person who really thinks they know everything they need to, and they might, but just make sure you put that resource in front of them so that when they do get that tough time, they wait till it's an immediate issue as opposed to planning ahead. They're aware that the resources are available to them. Beyond that, we're always looking to grow our network of volunteers and supporters, and just check out our website at cicville.org or the Central Virginia cvsbdc.org. Either one of them can get to our resources.
Steven, can you walk anywhere in Charlottesville or Albemarle without being stopped?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
because you know a lot of people.
Yeah, the great thing about, we're a small town. The entire region that CIC serves, from here to Culpeper, is 340,000 people, right? Richmond is 250 by itself. And so, I enjoy living in a small community where you walk around and you know people, and it's more about kind of seeing familiar faces, being able to check in with folks. One of my favorite CIC graduates is Mark Briggs, who has sold, gifts on the mall for years. He hasn't done it recently, with health, but I see Mark all the time, and it's always fun to check in, with him, and as he kind of moves through life and whatever. And I'd say most people run into Mark quite a bit if you've ever met him. And so just running into people, and that's what makes a small community so much fun.
I've run into Mark many times at the post office.
Yes, everywhere.
And on the downtown mall.
Everywhere. Mark is everywhere, and he's a great guy.
He is a great guy. Stephen Davis, you're a great guy. Thank you kindly for joining us. Community Investment Collaborative President, and just a name that I hear constantly in this community is Stephen Davis and his team at CIC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Judah, if we can go on the one shot here. I'll get to the comments that are coming in. Vanessa says, thank you so much, Stephen. Vanessa says, the way the Who's are playing, they deserve to be the lead. Armstrong and the team are getting it done. Vanessa Parkhill, you are 100% right. They do deserve to be the lead of today's show, and that's why we made them the lead. This is the I Love CVille Show, where we feature the best of Charlottesville, the best of Albemarle County, and the best of Central Virginia. We try to utilize social media and this ubiquitous device we call smartphones to bring content that galvanizes the community for the best. It's the whole premise of the network. Tomorrow, a board member from the CIC, Alex Erpy, on the Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille Show. Real Talk at 10:15 a.m. with my friend Keith Smith. Thank you for joining us on a glorious day here in Central Virginia. He's Judah Wickower. My name is Jerry Miller, and this, the I Love CVille Show. Take care.